how about a video game? Can you tell us one video game that you've been playing for pleasure?
To point toward the logo or the direction is
Guild
wrong? I
Wars
think it's
2,
right.
Path of Fire. Yeah, so
Yes. Entire game journey, cooperative, loving, the community, friendly, always helping. That is something that actually surprised me a lot. So I'm really into how this game mechanic facilitate that. So that's why I make excuse to play it.
Hello world, this is SPARTIE-Cast.
hello and welcome to SPARTIE-Cast. In this episode, I speak with Skylar Lei, a PhD student in our very own Information and Media program here in the College of Communication, Arts, and Sciences at Michigan State University. She's also a proud and productive member of the SPARTIE Lab. We've worked together on multiple projects, but today I pretend like I know very little about her to get a better understanding of her background, why she started studying games, what exactly made her curious about games as a child, which led to her pursuit of a PhD in game studies. She gives us some advice about how potential future PhD students in game studies, or maybe anywhere, could approach the topics that they find fascinating. We talk about her specific interests related to cooperation and prosocial behavior in video games. We expand on that by discussing her playing of Guild Wars 2 and the reasons she believes Guild Wars 2 is perhaps one of the best cooperative games out there, the game mechanics that lead to the successful cooperation between players, and last but not least, why exactly psychologically she cringes when watching Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Check it out here on SPARTIE-Cast. Hello and welcome, Skylar. How are you? Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, happy to be here.
Yeah. So, Skylar, you and I spent a lot of time in meetings just like this, talking about research, but
Exactly.
I'm going to pretend I know nothing about you, or at least very little. So can you tell me about what it is you're doing here with your life?
Wow. So I'm a second year PhD student in the Department of Media and Information at MSU. And my main research interests are media psychology with an emphasis on more immersive, interactive media, such as video games and virtual reality, artificial intelligence related. And yeah, that's about it. I'm also interested in studying how people perceive humanness in technology.
Yeah, some great topics. It's no coincidence we work together because I like all of those topics. So you're here at Michigan State University in the PhD program. In our department, it's called the Information and Media program, right?
Yes.
And before that, where were you?
Before that, I finished my master's program at Boston University in the Division of Emerging Media Studies. And before that, finished my undergrad in sociology in Sun Yat-sen University back in China, in Guangzhou.
And you did all of your studies in China?
Yeah, up until the master program point.
Okay. And did you travel outside of China much before that?
A little bit. I went to Japan for a short trip, and yeah, that's about it. I did travel a lot within the realm of China.
Of
That
course.
sounds like a multiverse already.
The realm. And you've always been a gamer.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's a sole motivation. I'm here. That's not true. That's not true. My heart is academic.
It's nice to study what you love. We can do that in our field.
Yeah.
So you ended up working with Jim Cummings at Boston University. I should really have him on the podcast too. We'll send this to him. We'll say we were talking about him. But Jim also has a background in virtual reality research, and so you got excited about pursuing this as a career, I guess.
Yes, and I did. I was influenced a lot by Dr. Cummings Jim. Yes, he studies virtual realities. He studies multitasking on a single device, which is very fascinating, and mainly emergent media, new media, and yeah, that's how I got my first move in academia.
So I think it would be great if you imagine right now that you're speaking to potential PhD students, undergrads out there who might be interested in China or in the United States or all over the world, interested in pursuing the type of research that you're studying. What would you tell them? What kind of advice do you have, or parts of your journey would you want to share about becoming a PhD student in this field?
I'll start with when I was a little girl. When I was very young, I'm always like drawn to the game world. That's, I guess, from the perspective of the parents, that might be a downside of giving access to computers to a child too early. But the computer, let's say just the machine, always kind of attracts me. And then I did start gaming very early on, and have since been in the long battle with my parents about gaming, because I will be spending a lot of time that I should be doing something else, but instead I was gaming, I was playing games. And along the way, I always had this thought of maybe one day I'll find a way to actually work with games the whole time. Maybe I could become a game designer, a game developer, artist, some way just working my way closer to games. But then growing up and entering college and studying sociology, which is kind of removed from game world, and then that dream kind of died down a little bit, traveling abroad and getting to know entirely a new branch of studies and a completely new field to me, basically. I never tried to understand game from a media and a communication perspective until I got to Boston University. And then, like we mentioned before, Jim kind of opened up the new world to me, because I understand that, oh, we can study it as part of the media world, as part of what we have already been studying and developing along the way before game even started. So that's kind of my journey. And then I did find a weird way closer to game, I guess, eventually, as a researcher, try to study games. And I feel like that suits me better. So the point of the long story is, definitely stick to what you love, and then somehow you'll find a way closer to it.
But certainly everyone who loves games won't necessarily be a great fit for studying them. So what else do you need? What other attributes or skills or interests do you think helped you get into this field?
I think first of all, you need to have the idea of observing things all the time. Speaking from my own experience, when I'm a player, when I'm a gamer, I just want to kind of bury myself in the game without thinking too much and just have the fun. But most of the time I'm playing, I'm also actually observing a lot of interesting phenomenon. And I think those are times when I really think from a different perspective that, oh, this might not just for me to have fun, but also could be a place where I learn things, where I interact with people, where I have different experience that's as real as the real life to me. So it would be great that you keep your curiosity high at all time and observe whenever you're kind of having fun. And now I'm a researcher that I also think about things more through the lens of theory and more academic driven kind of perspectives. So I would say that learning about how the game came to be and how how can it be so attractive and so interesting to play? Like you reverse engineering what you are experiencing, that gets you back to things.
Great. This is really great advice. So maybe imagine I don't know if anyone who listens to this podcast is under the age of 15, but maybe we're speaking to kids at that age and reminding them to stay curious and excited about the things that they find interesting. And eventually, potentially, those things could be the core of their job, the
Exactly.
core of what they study also, right? It takes a certain kind of curiosity, as you've said, and thirst for knowledge to just want to stay in school, essentially, as long as you have.
That's true.
And so, yeah, great. And so tell us a little bit about the specific phenomena that you find interesting related to games.
First of all, I think there are a lot of interesting phenomena that's like my whole week are like spent on just thinking about interesting phenomena that I observed in games. But I'll
How about more
choose
formally, the things that you're writing papers about?
Yes,
or preparing
that's
to do
where I'm
for
heading,
research?
because this is the start of the semester, and typically for us doctoral students, new semester normally means new proposals, 2 or 3 for each semester, I guess. So I'm actually recently really interested in one kind of direction that's built upon my advisor's previous study that examined how players playing cooperatively in violent video games could not only not increase their aggression, but actually increase their prosocial behavior. And that to me is very fascinating. But the study was done, I guess, almost a decade ago. I don't remember the time, but in the experiment of the study, the authors examined one condition, which is players will eventually win the game. But they did examine playing cooperatively or playing competitively. But the end goal is to defeat the computer. So I'm thinking that nowadays we play a lot of games that are player versus player, like Fortnite, like League of Legends, and other games. So the most of the time, the scenario becomes we had a long and tough fight, but we eventually lose, and then the enemy team always seem to be a teeny bit better than us, and we start to blame our teammates. And that's a phenomenon that I really want to study under the framework of the previous study that I mentioned. We did play cooperatively, but in case that we're defeated, how do we feel about our teammates? Do we still behave prosocially, or do we think of our teammates as garbage? And we're the only one who's doing the hard work, but we still lose.
In the previous study, you're saying the participants always won?
Yes.
Okay, so they were either playing competitively or cooperatively.
Yes, but they did playing PvE mode, which means player versus environment, and they all win.
So they always won, and they were always playing a computer. So you want to look at a difference when they're playing with human teammates against human opponents, and when they potentially lose as well as win.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine prosocial behavior like goes right out the window when you're blaming your teammates for your loss.
Exactly. And that's what fascinates me, is that I did, in my own gaming experience, observe multiple different outcomes when we lose our fight. When the game is very difficult, and say a match that went for 40 minutes, sometimes even if you lose, the teammates are not that angry with each other. In fact, they kind of compliment each other's effort and say that, well, although we lost, it was a good fight, it was a good game. But sometimes, even if it's an easy game that you win, you don't necessarily feel very thrilled, and you don't think that your teammates are doing an excellent job. It just felt easy sometimes. So I'm also thinking about if the interaction between the arousal level that the game induced in players would have an interaction with the winning or losing condition that may lead to different outcomes and feelings we have toward our teammates.
There's a study that we published, I think last year, with Cindy Shen and Dimitri Williams, and many other collaborators at UC Davis, where we looked at toxicity reports and team skill. And I think what they found was there were more toxicity incidents when there's a wide gap in team skill. And the higher your skill, actually, the more toxic you were likely to be. But that kind of makes sense, right? Like if you're an expert and you get stuck on a team with a noob and they're the reason you lose, or you have to carry them the whole way across to the win, you're more likely to be frustrated. Not that justifies flaming them or otherwise being antisocial, but I think that's the generalized case there. So maybe a contributor to differences in arousal is the variance in skill level on that team.
That is very likely to be the case, I think.
Oh, that's tough data analysis, I got to tell you.
Yeah.
Looking at team data, then you might get into social network graphs and comparing the two. I mean, I guess you can condense some of it down, but that is not my favorite type of analysis. Good luck.
Thank you. But yeah, I can see that this direction would be very difficult to examine, especially in a more dynamic setting. It's difficult to control.
Of course, of course. We talked a little bit earlier about how you have strong opinions about Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. So share those, Skylar. And if you can, try to put on a media psychology hat and throw that in there too.
The movie went out when on my birthday, actually. And then a bunch of friends and I went to the theater with precautions, and we watched the movie.
Happy birthday. Go on.
Thank you. And we watched the movie. So the friends I went to the movie with there are American friends, there are Greek friends, and also there are Chinese friends. So we agreed upon that this movie is definitely very entertaining, and it had great story, it had great performance, and it's actually it's generally just very entertaining, and it's a good watch. And I feel like that's a baseline of Marvel movie. There won't be a Marvel movie that is not fun to watch. And I have to say that the cast choice are pretty good as well in terms of the performance, and especially Tony Leung, who is super famous in Asia. That's like a great surprise for all of us. The part that I'm not a big fan about, because this actually reminded me when I was watching Black Panther, which is another movie that's so high up on my list of favorite Marvel movies. I enjoyed and I loved Black Panther so much. And rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman. But when I was watching it, I'm also one of the audience who are not familiar with any African culture or any of the backgrounds that the story is taking from. So when I was watching it, I'm purely enjoying the aesthetic, the movie, the setup, and the storyline. And after after the movie got a huge success, I did saw some comments on that is just a weird mixture of what Hollywood perceive African culture to be like. And this time with Shang-Chi, that felt so real. That felt so real. And
I
I
see.
feel
So
so,
your proximity to the culture
yes,
kind of shades your interpretation, and of course you know the culture very well, being from
yes,
China. So then this Hollywood portrayal of it feels off or insufficient to you in some way.
yes, exactly.
In what
It,
ways? Can you describe kind of specifically what felt too simplified or
this is, first of all, this metaphor definitely is not, I didn't invent this metaphor, but I found it very accurate in terms of how culture works. It's basically, think about food. It felt like it's the variation of the authentic food with a lot of uh, catering to it. And the end result is actually for the targeted audience to accept more easily and still remain the sense of exotic or like a different type of food. But the end goal is for the target audience to receive it easily and in a way that they can relate. I wouldn't necessarily say that this is like a very bad move or like this is disrespect of our culture, because a lot of times I do understand that for people from different cultural background to understand each other, we always would resort to ways that are understandable for the other part of the interaction. I guess what I'm saying
you're
is that
you're trying to be politically sensitive in the way that you're
yes,
describing this, and I think you're doing a great job,
thank you.
Skylar, and I totally know what you mean, right? It feels inauthentic, not necessarily disrespectful, but you know, if you're from the South and in the United States and you're used to, I don't know, cornbread being made a certain way, and then you go to Northern California to some Southern restaurant and you eat cornbread and it doesn't live up, then you're disappointed because it's labeled as the same thing.
Exactly.
Or there's this show called The Chair. Have you heard of it?
Yes,
It's about academia, and I
English
really like
department.
Sandra Oh. I think she's a great
Yeah.
actor. Killing Eve, loved it, but I
Yes.
just cannot watch the show. Jeannie is watching the show, and I'm like, please, I can't even hear it. The topics are just so close to home and so dramatized. It's
Exactly.
it's related to academia, but I know it so well. I live those faculty meetings. I see
Oh
those
God.
like gendered stereotype dynamics. But of course, it's so overt in a show because it just has to be done quickly. In the
Yeah.
same way, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the. So, which thing made you cringe the most in that movie? Which piece of that movie were you like, oh, they're just doing it in such a weird way?
Oh gosh. There are actually a lot of those moments. That's why my Chinese friends and I are like sitting in a row, and the three of us are laughing hysterically while the rest of the audience remains silent and just waiting for what's going on in the movie. And the three of us, well, there are so many moments.
Oh, can you
If
think of
I
one? Give us one example.
the thing the outfit they're wearing, it's such a weird mixture of ancient Chinese, ancient Japanese, and some Southeast Asian elements to it. It felt so. It's an interesting way that we didn't know that things can be mixed in this way before,
Oh.
and also I don't want to spoil things, but when the character Tony Leung was playing first met his future wife, that scenario, it's kind of like a budget copy of the very famous movie. I don't remember the English translation of that movie, but
What's the
the
title in
thing that
Chinese?
they fight in a bamboo forest.
Oh, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That's such a long name for, because the translation of that.
What is it in Chinese? Is it one syllable?
It's 4, but it's 卧虎藏龙.
Okay, so 4 syllables.
4 syllables.
Crouching Tiger, Hidden. Okay, it's literally twice as many.
That's basically the translation of that. It's a tiger and it's a dragon.
Okay.
And they're in different positions. So it's a
so it's a reference in a way, but Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon that did very well around the world, right? In Hollywood, but it's not a Hollywood movie, right?
It's not. It's directed by a Chinese director, and I think that would be, if we have that as a reference of authentic portrayal of Chinese culture, and like the saying that the character met his future wife did seem like a budget copy of that, which is still entertaining, but it just felt so similar. And
interesting. I wonder if it's supposed to be a reference, like paying homage
probably
to that.
Probably.
Sure.
And if I think about it from the media psychology perspective, I would say that the proximity and the familiarity with the culture background itself breaks me out from the immersion and the present so frequently that I cannot just enjoy the movie anymore.
Interesting. You can't suspend your disbelief.
Yes, exactly. I cannot suspend my disbelief anymore. This is breaking my disbelief.
Sure, because when you recognize that the outfit is completely, unrealistic, no one would actually wear such a combination of things, then that's a reminder of, okay, that's very interesting. I think you should get a PhD in a media psychology field.
Wow.
You're very good at interpreting these things. Awesome. Now, for a message from our sponsor, which is SPARTIE-Cast. Go to our survey and tell us what you think. It'll take like 37 seconds. Real quick, checkbox, answer some stuff. It is at bit.ly/SPARTIE survey. That's bit.ly/SPARTIE, SPARTIE survey, spelled like survey. Please and thank you very much. Now, back to our conversation with Skylar Lei. How about a video game? Can you tell us one video game that you've been playing for pleasure?
I'm not sure if my hand can point toward the logo or the direction.
Guild Wars 2, right. Path of Fire. Yeah. So
yes.
What type of character do you have?
So first of all, this is an old, by old I mean it just reached its 9th anniversary, and Guild Wars 2, it's a MMORPG game. Shall I abbreviate that?
Massively multiplayer online role-playing game. Go on.
Yes. And this is a game that I really liked, and I played it in my undergrad, and I recently picked it up. Don't tell my advisor and forget about the information I just told you. But this game actually stands out and in a very unique way about how it can promote cooperation in an online gaming environment because of how this game is designed. Players actually came together to do things, and they're basically, unless you went into PvP, but most of the time there isn't any scenario that you would actually hate other players and compete with others for resources. Entire game journey, cooperative, loving, the community, friendly, always helping. That is something that actually surprised me a lot. So I'm really into how this game mechanic facilitate that. So that's why I make excuse to play it.
All right, couple questions. First, you
Yes.
know we're recording this, right?
Okay.
So Dave might
out.
hear this episode and know that you're playing the game, but I mean, you need to play up the research angle. This is exactly the topic you want to study based on Dave Ebleson's previous research.
Yes.
And so you're looking at the mechanics that might be relevant to your research. So what's a mechanic that you think is particularly successful at promoting this cooperation?
I would, oh my gosh, I love this game so much. I would name three major component to it. So first of all, you could save people. You save other players. You're not, because we know that World of Warcraft, in some zones, you could kill other players and loot them and even prevent them from reviving. That's like just putting people in hostile environment. But in this game, you actually gain experience, leveling up experience by saving others. So this game, a player can experience a down state before they actually die and have to revive at a different place. The down state, every other player passing by could just hit a button and save them. And the player who are saving them gain experience. So that promotes people becoming very friendly and helpful. When you see people like almost dead on the side of the road, you hop off your mount and save them. So that's one thing. And another thing is that from the very beginning, the game development kind of established the goal of giving everyone the copy of things, not having them compete, argue, and trying to fight for one valuable thing. You always get a copy of your loot when you are working in a team environment, when you conquer a boss, when you finish a fight, everyone gets a loot. So people don't fight. That's virtual resources, but they get to, everyone gets to have one copy of that. And
that makes a lot of sense. And that's a conflict that we hear about from games like World of Warcraft again, right?
Yes.
Okay.
When you finish a very difficult fight within a team, but you don't get the loot that you wanted, that creates a lot of conflict and toxicity, I would say. Sure. But in this game, everyone gets a copy of loot. But sometimes it's still up to the random number generator to decide what you actually get, but you never fight others because of one thing.
Sure.
And then the third one would be, this game had skills that create a actual field on the ground, and have skills, another type of skills that functions as a finisher of this field. And the combination of the field and the finisher creates an area effect that affects multiple players around the area. So basically, that's a weird way of explaining it, but the end result is that you can heal people, you can buff people, and you accomplish that through the way of cooperating with other players. Because you may not have the field skill, or you may not have the finisher skill, but your teammates will have those skills. So the combination of you and your teammates with good timing and communication creates the strongest buff and strongest effects that will benefit the entire team. So I would say that from it did solve a lot of specific problem that used to be in a game that prevents players playing with each other and actually make them play against each other. But in this game, they're solved, at least so far. And they actually rely on each other to achieve something better and good.
Do you know if anybody's written about these types of mechanics in particular in cooperative games? Have you seen it in the literature?
If I've seen a lot of it, I might just quit and find another job, because that's part of my goal of
I think this is
scholar.
great. No, I think you should be a first mover and maybe try to get that written before someone who listens to this
Oh my
episode
God.
thinks I'm gonna take these ideas. But no, if you're a listener and a future or current scholar, please connect with Skylar. Don't just take her idea. Work together, cooperate. You can share your field and finisher area effect on your research experience. You can share the loot. You can both be listed as collaborators or co-authors on the paper. If one of you is downed, maybe low on mental energy, you can revive each other, get off your mount. And so, yes, our field is very collaborative, I think, as far as academic fields go, especially our little like quantitative niche of media psychology, communication studies. And so collaborating is important, as it is in games. And Skylar, I appreciate your collaborations on our many projects together, and not the least of which this podcast.
I'm so happy I get a chance to just rambling about things I love.
This was great. This was great. Well, I'm sure I'll see you soon. And thank you for being on the episode. Any last words for our listeners?
Come collaborate with me.
Send her an email.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, Skylar.
We can play games together.
Got to do it. It's required for research. That was our podcast. Thanks for listening to Skylar and I go over her past, her present, maybe a bit of her future research. And if you liked it, do all the things: the liking, the subscribing, the downloading, the telling of it on the mountain, etc. And thank you to Taylor Halterman, who is our producer and editor extraordinaire. Thank you for listening and watching SPARTIE-Cast. I hope to catch you next time.
Thank you for tuning into SPARTIE-Cast. Goodbye, world.